Star Wars The Acolyte Episode 6, titled Teach/Corrupt, gives a much-needed break to the energy after everything that happened in Episode 5. And with that slower pace, we received more character development and theme development to support it. This is Star Wars Music Analysis.
Do it.
The episode begins with the same descending strings that we heard as Chimere descended in Episode 4. From there, Osha awakes the same way she did in Episode 1, signaling a fresh start to her story. Occasional string swells fill the room as Osha looks around. The smears in the strings also continue as she feels a little uncertain of her surroundings. A solo violin enters over top as Osha realizes that she's stranded and alone, just like that violin. But as the camera pans out, the main Acolyte theme enters, foreshadowing that Osha may just be becoming the new Acolyte of this show as we enter the home stretch. The theme returns again as Osha looks out at the ocean. It's the most tender version of the theme that we've received so far, and seems to be adjusting itself to Osha now instead of May's harsher character. Next, we jump to a more frantic music as Sol and May leave Kofar, but it falls into a more mysterious sound as Sol is unsure what to even say. Then, we hear the more eerie rendition of May's theme as she looks around the ship that she had been on once before, many years earlier. And you can immediately hear the difference in how it's treated for May versus how it just was for Osha.
May, in this test, you must divine what...
The music builds in suspense as May approaches Sol, but he cleverly stops her by referring to her with her sister's name. The music calms as well with the mention of Osha.
Osha, I'm going to reset the transceiver.
As Basil enters again, we hear what has actually become a theme for the little furry creature. And this was admittedly not a character that I expected to actually get a theme for, and so I hadn't been initially looking for it, but I think it was a chance for Abels to have a little fun with the motifs for this show. It's fun and bouncy, utilizing a lot of short attacks and pizzicato strings. But what do you think of this little guy's theme? As we jump back to Chimere during bath time, the same flute motif that we heard in this episode's opening titles returns. Now, later in this episode, Chimere says that his master gave him this scar.
Looks like someone stabbed you in the back.
Someone who threw me away.
Your Jedi Master?
And tell me what you think, but who else thinks that this kind of looks like it would be from a whip and not a lightsaber? And it just so happens that we're going to see our first ever light whip in a little bit as well from Vernestra Rwoh. So my theory is that Vernestra was Chimere's former master, and that she has some skeletons in the closet here as well. As he approaches Osha, the May theme enters again, signaling the beginning of Chimere seducing Osha to the dark side. Underneath their entire conversation, the strings continue small swells, hesitantly, just as Osha is hesitant of what to do in this moment. As he walks away, the solo violin returns to represent Osha's continued lonesomeness. Returning to May and Sol, the high strings hang over these two, just like the shroud of pretense between them. And we're going to hear these high strings continue through a lot of this episode, so keep an ear out. And the mystery continues with this line as to what exactly happened on Brendok. I can't wait to find out what it is that Sol and everyone else were actually so afraid to confront about the night from Episode 3. I imagine that Episode 7 will be the big reveal for this, since it's directed by the same person that did Episode 3.
It's time for me to face the High Council, to tell them everything.
The Acolyte theme returns again as Osha follows Chimere along the shore. But once again, as Chimere walks away, Osha stands alone with the solo violin playing this motif that has returned several times now and has me intrigued. I'm curious if this is meant to be a motif of temptation. In the next scene, our hero Basil arrives to save the day with his theme, but is short-lived as he runs off and his theme exits as well. And once again, droids representing an evil owner have glowing red eyes. Why has nobody in the Star Wars universe caught on to this? Except Sol does in the next scene, which is why he brings up the droid to May. Abels then brings in Osha's theme with May in the bassoon, supposedly to continue pretending this is Osha, but in a somewhat sinister way.
Can you run a check on the power system?
Powerful
That same
emotions.
temptation motif returns
Anger,
as Chimere tells Osha about
fear,
the dark side, but his theme
loss.
quickly follows it next. Abels continues to hold strained tension through this entire episode with these high strings that continue to cling and strain our nerves forward. Chimere's theme returns several more times in the low strings as he continues to attempt to seduce Osha to the dark side. It builds in the music as Chimere hits a slower spot for Osha and pushes her closer and closer to the dark side. It rises higher and higher as he continues to build his case against her. The music releases as she gives in fully and ignites his crimson blade. It's at that moment that Abels brings in the theme of profound loss, as Osha gives in to everything that she has lost and sacrificed to the Jedi.
That's when you're finally free.
The music picks up as power is restored to the ship with May and Sol. May immediately heads for the comms, but as she connects with someone, Sol decides to take matters into his own hand, stunning May and leaving before he can be detected. I'm so curious to see what the true motivations of both him and Vernestra are. This has become such an intriguing mystery, and I really just hope that they actually land the big reveal of what has been going on. Clearly, Basil is thinking the same thing. The string swells return once more as Chimere leaves Osha alone with his helmet, and yet again, we hear something that sounds like Kylo Ren's theme except for the last pitch. And perhaps Chimere or Osha are the origins of this Sith breakoff group, the Knights of Ren. It works here because Kylo's theme and May's theme are so similar to begin with, and I am still unsure if this isn't just a coincidence by Abel as he attempts to slowly alter May's theme to fit Osha instead of May. But now that it's happened several times, I begin to wonder why and if it represents something greater. What are your theories on this? The horror music returns as the Jedi stumble into a graveyard of their own colleagues, truly the nightmares for any Jedi. I love how Abels jumps us into this moment but then nods again to May's theme, and really the theme of hopelessness and darkness for this show. But you can see here that Vernestra knows something more.
To tip the scales.
And I think Chimere really was her pupil. It all adds up and makes sense, and it would explain why Vernestra has been acting the way that she has. What do you all think? Is Vernestra Chimere's former master and the one that gave him these scars? As May wakes up and sees Sol, a distorted version of Osha's theme comes in as Abels continues to blur the identities of these two twins, and Sol is clearly losing his mind and falling to the dark side.
Believe me.
In the final scene, Osha approaches the helmet. Abels uses several metallic percussive instruments as Osha slides her fingers across the cortosis, adding to the metallic nature of the helmet. Next, he brings in Chimere's theme as Osha takes his bait, putting on the helmet. But as it goes on, we're simply left in silence as Osha is alone and in the darkness, and we simply hear her heavy, terrified breathing. Finally, with this episode, the characters' backstories begin to become really intriguing to me. Now I can't wait to see what happens in the final two episodes, and I think this is beginning to add weight to what felt like a weaker episode 3. But I absolutely would love to know what all of you think. What do you think of this episode? Do you think Osha will actually become Chimere's apprentice and the Acolyte? What did you think of Basil's theme? And what are your own theories about the Night on Brendock and of Chimere, Vernestra, and Soul? Tell me in the comments below what you think, and consider checking out my Patreon page using the link in the description, where you can help support this channel for as little as $1 a month, or download PDFs and MP3s of projects as I complete them, along with other perks at higher tiers. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to learn more about the music of a galaxy far, far away, and as always, may the be with you.